Well, greetings everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Westmarch Workshop. This is episode 151, our return episode after BlizzCon 2018. We've dubiously titled this one Diablo Immortal and BlizzCon 2018. What happened? And as you can guess, there's a lot to talk about, so I don't want to lament for too long. We'll go ahead and get right into today's show. If you're watching live or on the VOD, you can see that we actually have a special guest among us, the co-founder of BlizzPro, which is the platform that hosts our lovely show. JR, welcome, sir.
Hey guys, I just realized shortly before the show this is my first time on, so super excited.
Yeah,
I
man,
want to talk
that's
about some Diablos.
Diablo talk will
And,
ensue.
and I just saw you guys like just a few days ago.
Just a couple.
It's been a bit, but not that long. Yeah, man. Well, thank you for hopping on here. First time, good time to be a first time. Lot to discuss. So yeah, we will see what the road of conversation leads us down. Nine Ball, the man that just fell out of the sky. How you doing over there?
Almost quite literally. Yeah, I'm doing good. Doing good. It's about almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and so it's my fault for the show being delayed. Sorry, everybody. But we're here now.
Hashtag blame Nine Ball.
Hashtag blame my eyeball indeed.
I was just glad it wasn't me for the first time ever. So, I'm good with it. 'Cause I thought I was
Blameless.
going to be late.
You are all good, right on time.
I did it for you. I did it for you, so that way you wouldn't feel bad.
Thanks. I was actually on time though.
Just to let you know. By the by. All right. Well, the way I wanted to structure this one was to really eschew most of the normalcy that we have in terms of the format of the show. I think our weeks in gaming, would be BlizzCon for the most part, and I don't really feel there's a reason to not dive right into sort of the before, during, and after of what happened out in Anaheim. If we have time, we do have emails from the community. I think we should read those if we can get them in. Just depends on how long our conversation goes. But yeah, I think we'll have a lot to go with. So, kind of just first and foremost, the last show, episode 150, if you'll recall, Nine, was our pre-BlizzCon show. It was our prediction show. And I actually just listened back to it before we started here tonight. And eerily enough, there's the very first thing that we talked about in the prediction segment. It was Diablo Mobile.
Or mobile. Yep.
And do you remember what we said?
I said short answer no, long answer fuck no, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I published an article on Diablo fans about it where I gave like Diablo Mobile next to 0% chance. So you can imagine how the rest of my predictions went.
Yeah. JR, we've talked a little bit, and I should say too, jumping forward a little bit, but it's kind of funny that all three of us are here tonight because all three of us were sitting next to each other during the opening ceremony. So kind of some vibes there. But JR, before you arrived at Anaheim BlizzCon, what were you feeling in terms of what could come for the Diablo franchise?
I was personally thinking it was going to be some kind of remaster, like either Diablo, the original, or Diablo 2. I felt the chances were better on the original Diablo. That's what I felt when I got to Anaheim. As you know, Stephen, my stance changed as we walked into the show floor.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that's a great part to lead to next. I guess I'll also start with my thoughts as well. Were never like, as far as going back to last episode, my prediction as well was just no. There was even a quote that I pulled out for myself. I'm quoting myself now, where I said it's such a low percent chance for a mobile Diablo to happen. This isn't what anyone wants, I think was what I said. And I think I would edit just to say that now with everything, and we'll get to it, it's not what the core fans want. I think that's a good way to put it. And we'll talk about why that matters more later. So yeah, let's talk about how we were feeling or doing as we arrived now at Anaheim, as we're kind of getting the vibe, because all three of us arrived several days prior to the start of the convention. So we're starting to meet some of the other con goers, talking to some of the people that we know at Blizzard. At this point, are you getting any sense of anything, or is it still kind of just, not quite sure what they're going to give us just yet?
I had no idea. I was still on the remaster train. I guess I can talk about it now because it's after BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm.
But we had gotten our interview schedule before, like a couple weeks before BlizzCon, and there was an interview on there for a classic game, non-WoW,
That's right.
and I had in my head the whole time that was Diablo related. I was happy Warcraft 3 because I was really excited for that. I just thought that Diablo was going to be the big thing, and if it was anything, that it would be that. So I was blindsided by the actual Diablo announcement that it was.
How about you, Nine?
Yeah, that was one of those things. Like even going through, because I had it in my head that everything was like kind of pointing towards a remaster. There really wasn't a lot of evidence, for a Diablo mobile game in development. There was a whole bunch for a while ago. There were a whole bunch of the Diablo unannounced project games that were for like, artists or engineers with experience in PBR workflow and such. But then there were also separate unannounced, not unannounced Diablo project, but just unannounced project for a lot of people with mobile experience and such. And so that was kind of like my disconnect from everything. I was still very much so on the remaster train, walking into the show floor, seeing all of the demo stations hidden with just small boxes.
Yeah.
That is like there's no PCs there, and well, the switches are over there, and like it doesn't even match up to like what they had for like the Switch displays. It's like I guess they're phones or tablets.
Yes.
It was very obvious it was.
Yeah, and yeah, in my head it was still like one of those ones where it's just like, are they re-releasing the remasters on mobile? Because a lot of other companies have done that. You can go back and play like all the Final Fantasies on mobile and such, and so it's one of those ones where just like it goes through and happens. But I still had that like kind of disconnected feeling even going into the opening announcement, where I'm trying to rationalize my feelings with the evidence that's right in front of me.
Yeah.
And even then, at that point, like I didn't think, like I was like, okay, there's something mobile related here, and I know that Blizzard was going to go into that direction, because Alan Adams said when he joined 2 years ago, it's on mobile, and I was like, okay, maybe this is the first mobile game we're gonna see out of Blizzard, but I expected it to either be something completely new or a spin-off of one of their IPs. And either way, I didn't expect it to be the big announcement. Like I expected it to be an announcement, and then we're also getting something else for the people that were attending BlizzCon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to actually back up just to that moment, right, where you guys walk into the show floor and you see the covered demo stations. I think it's important to kind of just take some time to think about. So I had not walked in with you guys. I was still upstairs, which I can now reveal, recording the interview for what would become part of the closing ceremony. So I didn't get that experience. I actually saw the demo station through Nineball's tweet that everyone started to retweet, showing that there is this new demo station, which was of course the blank space on the map that we had looked at prior to BlizzCon.
Yeah,
So,
which thank you, Corsair.
yeah, they also spoiled it days before with their own version of the map that was unedited. So we knew going in that there was indeed something there, and then the boxes over it, and again, just the fact that they looked so small, the fact that you couldn't hide a PC screen under there. And it's funny, I wanted to key in on what you said, Nine. It's funny that in your mind, you still had the idea of a remaster, just maybe now on mobile, because that was Dread's prediction. If you recall back to last episode, Dreadscythe was also on the show with our prediction segment. And he said, you know what, there's just maybe this little off chance that it could also be a remaster that goes onto mobile if they're going to use that platform to make a game.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of in line with some of the potential thoughts that both of you were having with where Blizzard could take it, or of course the whole idea of a new IP established for the mobile platform. And then we get to opening ceremony. And now let's not jump right ahead to Diablo, but let's discuss the build-up, because I think it's actually important thinking about the order of operations that occurred on the stage. Nine, I want you to sort of take me through your thought process as you're seeing the opening ceremony unveil.
Yeah, it was one of those ones where it's like they started with some of the smaller stuff. You had like Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm, World of Warcraft, and such. I was actually really surprised that they put like the Heroes one so far up with the whole like kind of like it wasn't just like the introduction of a hero, it was the introduction of we're super gonna start like diving into the story and like actually creating like a story around this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But then for me personally, it was like oh okay, World of Warcraft, oh okay, Heroes of the Storm, oh, okay, Overwatch hero, just like the IPs that I'm not there for that. I'm there for Diablo, even though I enjoy those franchises. Then we get to Hearthstone, and then there's the audio glitch, and so they kind of had to like go and move forward, and so we got somewhat out of sequence. We were supposed to have the Hearthstone expansion, and then we were going to get the Warcraft 3 Reforged announcement.
Well, Overwatch.
Or Overwatch, was that next?
Yeah, because they ended up going over to Papa Kaplan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Gotcha. But then they had the Warcraft 3 Reforged. That was immediately before?
That was
yeah, that's right.
Diablo.
Yeah, I'm getting everything confused now. Sorry. Been traveling all day. But it was just, like when they came on and they announced, that Classic Games was coming up to go through and talk. Even though I knew he was wearing, it was the Warsong Raiders or the Warsong Outrider shirt. There's still that thing in my mind, well, maybe he's going to talk about Diablo. Maybe he's going to talk about Diablo. And then, of course, they went and started playing the remastered opening cinematic for Warcraft 3. And it was just like, he could still talk about Diablo after Warcraft, right? It was...
Yeah, I remember you cheering on that Warcraft 3, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big Warcraft 3 player.
Seeing
the totem there, and then knowing that I'm about to see like the orc and the guy go through and fight, it's like, okay, it's still gonna be really cool. It's still gonna be fun. It was like just also like, I guess like that cinematic was like redone by this almost like the Classic Games team, and maybe not by the cinematics team, because it definitely had like a different look and feel to it from what current Warcraft cinematics have.
Yeah, I remember at that time I was live tweeting, and I can recall 2 live tweets in particular that I issued. One was, oh, I guess they're saving the best for last, and this was somewhere between Overwatch and Hearthstone. Just thinking, okay, they've gone through like so much already. Wow, Diablo is airily missing here. I guess it's going to be last. And now the hype is really building, because it's like, if it's going to be last, it's got to be huge.
Yeah.
And then right before, when they were like, in Classic Games, Pete Stillwell, I like lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, guys, I think this is it. I think this is Diablo, and put out a tweet. And then sure enough, of course, it was Warcraft 3. But it was weird because my emotions were so misplaced at that time. Not to say it was a bait and switch, but like I bait and switched myself essentially. Yeah. But I remember just like as the cinematic started, I like put my hands in the air. I was like, oh, but I was like, wait, but oh, still kind of hype, because I loved Warcraft 3 as a kid and played the crap out of the Frozen Throne expansion in particular. So no matter what, I actually was really excited for it. And to jump ahead, but not jump ahead, I actually feel that Warcraft 3 Reforged was the most hype announcement in the entire opening ceremony.
Yep. It was.
Yeah, that definitely. I have to say that was the highlight of the ceremony.
Yeah. Okay, now
And
so
then we got the buzzkill.
yeah, JR, I want you to take us now. How you're observing this, how you're feeling this, and I particularly would like you to discuss the feeling in because we have the advantage of having been at BlizzCon, right? A lot of people who have issued opinions on this are kind of viewing it from the outside in on virtual
Right.
ticket and Twitch and the free opening ceremony viewing process. So kind of get me there from being there. Now we're seeing what?
I mean, at this point, everybody's pretty hyped. Like, all of the announcements were pretty cool. Like, even though it was like we expected most of it, but it was we got to see a lot of cool cinematics going on with Overwatch and all that, and everybody's kind of getting into it. We just had Warcraft 3 announced, a remaster announced, and everybody's excited for that. Everybody's cheering. And then Wyatt comes on stage, and everybody's like, "Okay, we're gonna get something Diablo now. It's Diablo's turn." And you can feel the anticipation. And then he comes out, and then he immediately starts talking about mobile, and everybody went quiet.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, what's going on? And I'm sitting here going, I'm giving it a chance. I'm like, okay, this is Blizzard. They saved this for the end of BlizzCon. It should be something big, even if it's mobile. It should be something pretty cool. And then it goes to cinematic. And the first thing you see is NetEase. And I just lost. I was like, oh, wait, what is this? And then they showed what it was. And I'm like, what? I'm like, there's got to be something more than this, and there wasn't. It was uncomfortable. It was silent. Nobody cheered,
Yeah.
and it was the most uncomfortable announcement I have ever seen at BlizzCon.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I was mad. I know that people are, and people were. I was just very disappointed. I'm like, is this what you saved for the end? Is this is this real? I was just, like I remember 2 tweets that I made, and I go, so that was a thing. Hashtag BlizzCon.
Yep.
Because I didn't know how to react. Like nobody, like it put a complete damper on the show. Everything that was like it was uneasy. And then the next thing I tweeted was, this feels like a new era. And I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah.
And you guys have been to way more BlizzCons than I have. This was my 4th. And as you said that, JR, that was the most kind of uncomfortable announcement, the quietest that it's ever been at a BlizzCon opening ceremony, where usually it's the loudest. People talk about the sort of historic like rumbling that you can feel when people are like stomping their feet or clapping or getting excited. You could have dropped a pin in that room and heard it.
Yeah.
It was on. I've never experienced anything like that at BlizzCon, and I looked around sort of when the announcement was rolling out, when he said we love Diablo and something about staying global and connected, and then mobile. And I'm just kind of looking around because that's the trigger word at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was just sort of looking at the stage with this. It's awe in the most standard definition of the word. Like literally could not believe what they had just heard, could not believe what they had just seen. I don't know. Nine, what was your vibe?
I mean, it just definitely was one of those ones where I'm just kind of like sitting there, because I normally go through and like live tweet everything, and I'm just like, kind of pushing away on like the keywords that they're going and like putting out, not like giving my own take on what's being said, just straight like what it is that they're telling us, and it's just, I don't know. And this was like the first time I ever experienced something like that, where it's, like I feel as if I should be excited, but I'm not. And I think a lot of it goes to what like JR said, it was just like seeing that giant NetEase logo go through and pop up, and it was like, NetEase, why them? And I mean, we'll get into this more as we learn more about it in the next panel coming up. But it was definitely, I had like such mixed emotions. Like, it was kind of like the ceremony was over, and it was like, yay!
And the ceremony was over, and everybody got up and was walking. It was like everybody was walking in a daze.
It looked like zombies. Like, yeah.
It did. Absolutely. Like, it just, everybody's like, did that really just happen?
Mm-hmm.
That really felt like the most common reaction.
It's rough because here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't blame the developers at all for this. Like, Wyatt's an awesome dude.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure he's doing an awesome job with this game. And from what I played of the game, like, I was like, yeah, this isn't bad. It's not something I'm gonna play, but it's fine for a mobile game. And I just think the blame on this just simply comes down to their marketing team. Their marketing and their PR just did not have a good grasp of their community.
Yeah, this was one of those ones where it's like it got sold to the wrong people. And I think I've been watching a lot of like reaction videos and such, and I think kind of like one of the general consensus is that a lot of other companies have been going kind of like this route. The big one, of course, like being Bethesda, and like they weren't hit as badly. There was still kind of like some head scratches and such. But then, they announced the Elder Scrolls 6 immediately after Blades, the Elder Scrolls Blades, the mobile app. And then they just have like, a 30-second teaser saying that we're working on Elder Scrolls 6. And they got jived a lot for it, at the time, going through and saying like, how it's like, so the game's about trees? It's like, because it's just a little 30-second teaser, that all it showed was a name. And they got some flack for it, but overall the response now is like really positive about it. But going through and telling an audience that is there, for, even if they're not there for Diablo, that they're just a Blizzard fan in general, sitting in that audience, they're primarily a PC gamer. The console gamers that are there are either going to be a Diablo player, or if they're an Overwatch player, they probably went to the Overwatch arena to watch the opening ceremony. And your mobile kind of like fan base is going to be over in the Hearthstone, arena. They're there for Hearthstone, and so it's
that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like one of those ones. It's just there's not a lot of people that are there for. I mean, honestly, there's really no one there for mobile games. Like, we're there for PC.
I mean, Nintendo's been putting out mobile games, and they're fine, but I don't see those mobile games getting hyped up on their Nintendo Directs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's not for their core gamers. BlizzCon is for your core gamers, and this mobile game, these mobile games, like these spin-off mobile games, are not for your core audience. They're for your new audience. People going to BlizzCon is your core audience, and this, like it's okay to announce it there, but not as a big thing, not as your centerpiece.
Yes. Yeah, I want to bring in one point. So I've talked to so many people about this. I tried to gather as many of other people's opinions while I tried to understand my own for like the last 5 days. And one analogy that I got, or comparison I thought was really salient, was think of a relationship, right? Think of how you might try to tell someone in a relationship that you care about them, which would be essentially to understand them, to give them something that would make sense to them, that they would appreciate. That would be a way to say, I get you, I love you, if you want to pick them up, I understand what you're going through, sort of like how we came to BlizzCon, sort of devoid of gifts, in a content drought, if you will, and we were looking for a pick-me-up. We wanted something that would make us feel better. And then they delivered something that wasn't a gift to us, to the core, hardcore PC gamer player base that goes to BlizzCon. That is your main demographic that's spending the money for hotels, for flights, making the sacrifice to take time off from work or even to miss streaming if they're full-time streamers, which can be big hits to income. Those are the people that are at your show. And it was essentially like saying, well, yeah, we're in a relationship, but let me tell you about like this other, hot person, which is now that mobile market that I'm interested in. And it's just like, what? Like, we're breaking up. This is crazy. You can't do that. Like, why would you tell me this? Why are you telling me this right now? And I think, yeah, a lot of what you guys have mentioned so far in terms of like wrong place, wrong time, like they could have done it somewhere else. And now I want to actually introduce one more thing that kind of backs this up, but is also relative to, because I think it's also a totality of circumstances. If we look at the full slate of kind of what occurred for Diablo in regards to the what we're calling the hype video, the future of Diablo video, and then the blog posts, which again we've intriguingly noted here on the show that they essentially said the same thing, but perhaps had different tenors, maybe due to the medium, or just sort of where the community was at when they received both. And then just, yeah, the fact that it's BlizzCon, the fact of the audience that's there, and then what was actually presented. So yeah, if you could have chosen another spot for them to announce this and it be okay, where would you have done it? I mean, Gamescom literally just happened previous to this, right? 2 months before.
Mm-hmm.
I think at BlizzCon is fine if they had something else Diablo related to announce with it that was for your core audience, because it would take all the pressure off of this and it would still be announced, still be out there, people would still be talking about it, but people would be excited about the other thing that they announced, if there was another thing that they announced. Now if they didn't have anything to announce with it, then I'm not sure you even bother announcing it at a game show or anything like that. I think it's just a blog post or something like that this is coming out. The only problem with doing that, though, is that you have your Diablo audience right now, which is so starved for content to begin with,
Right.
that if you don't have something else to announce to appease them, you're still going to get this backlash, no matter what. Because people are going to be like, we've been waiting for Diablo and this is all that we get.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like there's no good place to do it unless you're able to appease your core audience first.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And it's weird too because it's, the Nintendo Switch version came out that same day, and it was weird.
It's awesome. I love it.
It's great, right? It got lost in the shuffle, but it was actually one of the more positive things I felt people were talking about, and maybe it was positioned to be so in a way, just because it's almost like pick a side at that moment of what's available for Diablo at the convention. But yeah, so many people had great things to say about the Switch version, even though there was a little bit of hesitation and resentment, might not be the right word, but sort of. Yeah, I guess hesitance to accept it earlier in the year because it just felt like, oh, it's just a port. It's not new content, but it kind of inadvertently gained all the glory because of what was shown with Diablo Immortal, and it's ironic, but it also deserves. I think the game deserves to sort of stand alone in its own right because it really is. It's actually, I think you said this, Jared, in your review. It's sort of the definitive way to play the game on console.
Yeah, I think it's a definitive way to play. In fact, I think I said it's a definitive play to play Diablo on the go. And that was before we even knew there was a mobile version.
Oh man, prophetic.
And even then, I still think it's a definitive way.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of odd that it was almost pitting two mobile products against each other, even though it's still being stylized as a console port. All right, so.
But I want to go back to something that I kind of said earlier about Nintendo and the thing that Nintendo does with their mobile games, and not just how they announce it, but the fact that they're putting out like an Animal Crossing game, they put out like a Super Mario Brothers game, they put out like a Fire Emblem game, and they put out like a brand new IP even. And they've been very successful. And then there's also Pokemon Go, which is hugely successful.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't. What they don't do is they don't starve that core audience. Like they're going to come out with an Animal Crossing game on the Nintendo Switch, and they flat out said that they're going to come out with, we already knew at the time that they were coming out with a new Super Mario Brothers. We knew that they're coming out with new Pokemon games. Yeah, they're releasing one in here like next week or something like that. It's very Pokemon Go. Like they also said, we're going to release a real Pokemon title that's coming out next year.
Right.
And so Nintendo doesn't starve their core audience, but they're still able to put out these successful mobile games.
It's almost like putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
Yeah. Where it's like, it's one of those ones where it's like the way, what it all really comes down to is just the way that you structure all of these announcements and such. And like you're saying, you're not giving anything to your core audience. You're going through and putting out like this mobile title, which, who knows? Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it won't. We'll get into that in a little bit. But it's still, that's not what we wanted to hear. We wanted to hear content update for Diablo 3, Diablo 4, Diablo Remastered, something for the PC gamers. Because even like if they had announced Diablo 2, Diablo 1 Remaster, there probably would still be some sourness because it's not like a true like real content update, but I think there still would be kind of like an overall positive reaction, because if you look at what like Warcraft 3 Reforged and like StarCraft Remastered before it, that was overall, those respective communities are really excited about those titles, and so it's just something to know that we're still there. And even though Blizzard has repeatedly said that there are multiple Diablo projects in the works and such, and I think at least like the three of us and a lot of the other content creators that we talked about and such all are accepting of the fact that means that Diablo 4 is one of those projects. It is a lot different than specifically going through and saying we are making Diablo 4. I think that's one of those ones that's what the community wants to hear. Like the community itself, like the collective consciousness, the hive mind is not going to accept it until it's just blatantly stated, because Blizzard has said it in every form besides just coming out with and stating we're making Diablo 4. That is all that needs to be said. In the community, there's still, that will definitely be like an olive branch, but there's still a long ways to go because of the handling of the situation.
Right.
Like this Diablo Immortal game could end up being a very good game. And it could make a ton of money for Blizzard, but it's always going to have that curse on it because of the way this was handled.
Yeah, I actually want to bring in two things. One is, I think it's also important to think about where the community's mindset was at, because one of the things we've commented on in the past is that the mobile Diablo was a meme, right? It's essentially, imagine like your worst fear coming true, because everyone was like, there's no way. It's like, guess what they're going to announce, guys? A Diablo. Like, I've seen it so many times on Reddit leading up to Blizzcon. Just no one believed it would ever happen. And so you saw a lot of who was asking for this, right? And it's almost Blizzard saying like, we know none of you were asking for it, but we're not after you. We're after opening up and broadening our reach to bring Diablo to places it hasn't gone before and to get more people into the community, which technically wouldn't be a bad thing, but I think it does keep boiling down to you can serve burgers, but what about your core audience that's always been here for the French fries? Like, we need some French fries, man.
I almost thought that you were going to make an IHOP joke there.
Oh, we need some pancakes, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a good analogy. Like, when IHOP went through, it was like, well, we're International House of Burgers now. Like, screw pancakes, we got burgers. It's like, what? And I guess I don't know, like, kind of like what you had the idea for, like, the structure of the rest of the podcast, but it's something that I do want to, like, just, like, kind of, like, jump into. more from like our thoughts on the opening ceremony, but like what like kind of like my overall thoughts from the convention itself.
Sure.
And when we went into then the what's next panel after the opening ceremony, and then after that we actually had a group interview, like press conference type thing with Wyatt, Alan, and a couple of the guys from the NetEase. Was just like the big thing that came from me is like, you know, I'm self-admittedly like one of the biggest Blizzard fanboys that there are. You know, 100% going out there, full disclosure. And you know, as far as making a cool mobile title and bringing that Diablo experience to mobile, I trust Blizzard. I trust that they could do it. I don't trust NetEase, and it seems that the majority of the development is being handled by NetEase. Because when I asked, well, what's the development split between NetEase and Blizzard for the Diablo Immortal title, they completely sidelined my question. All that they went through and said, well, we've had like a 10-year working development with NetEase, we work really well together, and all this other types of stuff. And it was just like, that in no way, shape, or form came close to even answering my question. So they already had that. They had like that type of answer prepared. They were expecting to get that, and they dodged it. And so to me, that means, well, this is kind of like a NetEase game with some Blizzard oversight, and just their track record. I don't know. That is at the point, you know, that kind of, you know, killed a lot of my excitement or potential hype that I could have had for the game.
Okay, so real quick, I want to introduce the panel and, like you just were talking about, the group interview, because I think it's important for everyone that doesn't know exactly. So I'm assuming there are a lot of people that don't play mobile games, so they're not familiar with A, what happens in the East, and B, what it means that NetEase's name is attached to any of this, right? So we definitely need to come back to that and sort of introduce why that's important. But just to throw into the pot for discussion as well, the next thing to occur right after the opening ceremony and this description of sort of everyone walking off in a daze, not really sure what just happened, we were then sort of continue to be inundated with why we should be hype about Diablo Immortal. And most of the What's Next panel was exploring what the zones would look like. They were giving us a little bit of the details in terms of what era of Sanctuary and Diablo history that this covers. So in some respects, it's going to be great for people that enjoy story and lore, because it looks like they're using this to deliver something in between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. It's supposed to be 5 years after the events of Diablo 2, if I remember correctly. Lore Master, please correct me if I'm wrong. And I think it was odd still, because I'm kind of still just watching this What's Next and being like, but what's next? Like, what is actually happening right now? And then, of course, we could talk about when they open it up for Q&A and what happened there. So, you know, let's dive into this section as well.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to watch the Q&A. I only got to see the aftermath. Unfortunately, I was already up in the well, I wasn't up in the press room. I had actually returned back to my hotel room to start loading up content for the website and stuff like that. So I just saw the highlights afterwards, and some of the embarrassing things that happened.
And so I think that's kind of good that you weren't there, because that, in a sense, can speak towards what was occurring, mainly driven through people seeing it from not being there in the internet, right? So the biggest things I'm assuming that you saw were like the red shirt guy, as he's come to be styled, who asked about the out of season April Fool's joke, and then of course Lord Fluffy, one of the community members, asking his question on whether they ever intend to port Diablo Immortal to the PC, and Wyatt's response of no, there's no plans at this time to bring it to PC, and then in booing, which I don't think has ever happened at BlizzCon as well, ensuing, and then the, of course, well, don't you guys have phones comment.
Yeah. I think the only
the
time
funniest comment ever, by the way. I feel bad for Wyatt, but you gotta admit that's pretty funny.
Yeah. It was definitely one of those ones, because it's like, as a Diablo player and all the things that they're going through, it's like it's gonna have what was it? I think it was like they're gonna have 8 open world zones. They're gonna have like 7 instance dungeons with handcrafted events and like scripted like boss encounters and like group gameplay. And these are a lot of things that we've talked about on the show and things that we've wanted. Like how many
Yeah.
times have we talked about like scripted greater rifts that are actually like a true challenge? Things that
Yep.
it's not just killing bad guys and stuff like that, but actually throwing in some decent like gameplay mechanics, something like that would require positioning like a Belial fight, or something where you have to like almost pseudo MMO style, where I have to kill these enemies so that way the boss isn't immune, so that way I can go back to DPSing the boss and such. It's just it's like these are all like really great ideas and stuff that we wanted in Diablo 3, or in a PC title. And so it's cool that they're having those ideas. It's just we wanted this type of content in like our game. Like if I can say that. But it is definitely one of those ones where it's like still it's just like I look at all of the stuff that they revealed and I want to get excited about it, but I don't. It's this is more a NetEase game than a Blizzard game.
Yeah, and it feels hard to isolate those feelings because I feel like one of the things I heard repeatedly was that this is going to be a fine mobile game. It probably will do really well on that market. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like I heard two things, right? I heard, does this actually need to be a Diablo game? Like, did they have to take this franchise to do this with? Um, and we can talk about that because there's something that Alan Adham said in several interviews, which makes it seem like this isn't the end of Blizzard and mobile, starting
Oh,
to romance
absolutely
each other.
not.
Well, this
Yeah,
is the beginning.
yeah.
Yeah, this is the beginning.
Yeah,
So I think it would
and
would and will spread to other franchises.
yeah, and it's one of those things that after the ceremony and the panel and such, getting my hands on it, and it's like my experience is a little bit different from JR's because I actually legitimately enjoyed the game. I really liked what little bit of gameplay that they had there. There was a lot of like kind of contextual skill interactions, like with being able to go through and like kick off of objects with the monk that wasn't like readily apparent at first, because there was times when I was going through and playing, I noticed that he does like a kick forward and then like a 180 kick behind him for like extra damage and such. And I was like,
Hmm.
why does that trigger only sometimes? And, I kept trying to replicate it, and it wasn't always like going through and happening. And then in the panel on day 2, they talked about that type of interaction as well as some other ones. And it's just they're putting a lot of thought into this, and there's like a lot of really cool mechanics that they're putting into the mobile game. Like, again, it's like I want to be excited for it, but I don't know. I
That
just don't
brings,
know.
yeah, that brings me to the second point I wanted to make because I think it was something you had said, but it almost, if you look at the timeline of Diablo 3, it almost reminds me of that time period where Diablo 3 had just released for console, and it was sort of the definitively better version of the game because they were doing like what they called, or what we called, loot 1.5. It was sort of the
Yeah.
in between of the itemization and looting and the auction house, making the PC version not great still. Then going to console and them sort of freeing the reins with no auction house there, and loot was dropping like crazy. Everyone loved that experience, and that was sort of like the redeeming factor of console right away. Then we got Loot 2.0 and Reaper of Souls and everything. You guys know the history from there. And this now sort of feels almost like, I don't know, call it like Diablo 3.5, even though the time period being covered is like in between D2 and D3. Because you mentioned, and they talked about it a little bit, that this engine is better than the engine that D3 runs on right now. This is the
But
PBR engine.
yeah, this is a next generation engine that is going to be, even though it's for mobile, it is a lot more powerful and can handle and do a lot more than what D3 could.
Yeah.
So you see all those cool things happening in Diablo Immortal, and you're like, damn, I wish that could be in D3, but it actually just can't. like we need the next game in order for them to do things like they're doing with Diablo Immortal. And I think that's part of another where the gut punch, as someone described in chat, comes from, because it's just like, like why couldn't they have just focused this project on a different platform? Like, so I even saw a bunch of people being like, instead of porting D3 to the Switch, this should have been on the Switch. Like, make this your Switch title, or and it's mobile. But yeah,
Mhm.
there's so many sorts of. It almost feels like little
Well,
cuts that add
well,
up. Yeah, hit
I,
me.
I feel like most of that is because they have a different development team doing it, right? They're outsourcing
Mhm.
it.
Hmm.
So they're able to get away with doing that elsewhere.
And actually,
Um,
this is a good point to talk about NetEase. Talk to me about NetEase.
I mean, okay, so NetEase is in China. So you're looking at an Asian market with mobile games, and they're like the biggest. They're huge. If you want to do that, this isn't necessarily true, but it makes it easier. If you want to do business over in China, you need to kind of partner with a company over there to kind of get approved. And so with Blizzard going with NetEase in this regard, it kind of helps them a little bit over in that market. The problem is NetEase is very known for their mobile games to be pay to win. Like when you think
And
about uh, a mobile game of paying to advance and advance quickly,
Hmm.
um, NetEase is comes to the forefront in my mind,
yeah,
which sucks because even though Blizzard has loot boxes and Hearthstone, which is I wouldn't say Hearthstone is pay to win, but it's definitely in that regard of like pay to advance more quickly,
Yeah, I feel that.
or pay to not grind, um, because you buy cards to not have to spend the gold to get them. Um, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win, but
Right.
that's something a little bit different in my mind. Um, but this is just straight up. I want to pay money to advance my character and be the best, and the only way you're going to be the best is to pay me more money.
hmm
And that just doesn't feel like something Blizzard would do. So to see them partner with a company like NetEase in this regard begs the question of what type of game is this going to be? Here's the thing that bugged me about their press conference is this question was asked about what the payment model was going to be in this
Hmm.
game.
hmm
And you know very well that this has been talked about at Blizzard multiple times, and they probably might even already know. But the answer we were given was we haven't even talked about it yet.
yeah.
And
No,
that just blows my mind. Like
yeah.
it's like no, you guys probably have. Um and it just feels bad.
Yeah, because that was one of the other ones that's like just going back to that press conference and such is like a lot of like Leviathan. I don't think that a single one of your questions got an answer.
No.
Yeah, it's because we wanted to ask more like direct questions about like gameplay, like what they have planned as far as content goes, like just some other people asked questions about like the monetization and other things along those lines, and most of the answers that we got back were it's too early in development, it's too early in development, it's too early in development. It's just then it's almost like
Then give
why
me
did it
Diablo
have
4.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
why did it have to be announced now? Because you had a whole bunch of other games that are coming summer 2019, that they went through announced, and so they're not ready to commit to a release date of Diablo Immortal. So that means it gets pushed back even further than that.
Yep.
And if we're so early in development, in 2019 might not even be a targeted release date. That this might be back to 2020. It definitely feels as if this is something that could have waited. There could have been something else, like but it's just I guess it might just come down to like the whole marketing and such, where the Diablo community has been hungry for something new, and they thought that this type of announcement would, kind of satiate us for a while, but it just was,
And,
kind of.
and that just shows me that Blizzard like doesn't have a grasp on their community right now.
Mm,
If that's what they think.
I
Um,
agree.
just don't know.
And when you brought up that moment of the questions not really seeming to have answers, that to me, it was so odd because it felt like the whole day was on rails because we didn't really have time to stop between everything kind of unveiling itself. There's the opening ceremony, which led right into the What's Next panel, which led right into the group interview. And we're literally like running because things got behind with the
Hmm.
delays. We're trying to run to get to everything. And so at that moment, we're sitting in the interview. I'm sitting there racking my head, like, what can I ask about this game? Like, what would make me feel better if I knew the answer to it? And as someone that really enjoys digging into Diablo on a really high, really in depth level, I wanted to know just maybe what I could expect in terms of like gameplay, end game, like feature system, something that I can get excited about and say, okay, maybe this is for me. And when none of those answers were coming, and when they said that there was a moment where they actually said, we want to capture the mobile market, some of the casual gamers, because people were asking about like battery life, what they
Hmm.
expect the play sessions to be like, and they were a little bit trying to cater to both at the same time. They were saying, we expect people to play in like these short bursts. We want casual players to be able to enjoy this, but he's like, but we also want our hardcore players to enjoy
Yeah.
this, like our core audience. This is for you guys too.
Uh,
Like he actually
they
said
they
it.
want Yeah, they wanted to provide content that you could sit for hours playing and still feel, like engaged with the game.
Hmm. And it was literally at that moment that I kind of felt my soul leave my body. Not to be dramatic, but I just felt this isn't for me. Like I don't really feel like they're making this game for me. And then combining some of the other factors like you guys have been keying on with NetEase and just some of the stereotypes of mobile gaming in general, all these things that are now touching this project. It's like this, what am I supposed to do with
Mm.
this?
And it's also from the press conference that they went through and said that, the question was asked, well, who is your target audience? And they answered, well, they still want to say that the core target for this game is the core Diablo fan base. That they still have that core kind of like PC fan base in mind as the target audience for this game. And again, it just is like one of those ones that goes back to, if it was solely in-house Blizzard making this game, I could give, maybe not believe, but give you the benefit of the doubt. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll withhold judgment until I actually get the full game in my hands and like kind of like go through and then seeing is believing type thing. But because it seems that it's a NetEase game with Blizzard oversight, that I don't know. I could tell you like one of the things I just got home, but one of the very first things I'm doing tomorrow is what is it? The Endless God in Crusaders of Light.
Yeah.
I'm gonna download those and see how they play. How bad is the paywall actually? Because that's what a lot of the community has been saying is, well, these are the style of games that NetEase makes. So this is kind of going to be a preview for what you could potentially get into Diablo Immortal. And if those games can't like hold me or interest me, then that's gonna kill a lot of the kind of simmering expectations that I have for the game. Depending upon what those are and how they play.
Yeah, you mentioned this is actually a good lead into sort of progressing through the day now because it was after the group interviews that we were finally able to get our hands on the game. And one of the things that Alan left the group interview saying, actually, we got a little bit of time to talk to him sort of one on one. One of the things that struck me was he was saying playing is believing, and being able to
Mm-hmm.
actually touch the game should help sort of sell it a little bit more, at least get you there enough to say, okay, maybe they got something here. Maybe I can vibe with this. And I think that's kind of an important point to sit on because there seem to be way angrier voices outside of the convention for those that weren't able to play it versus those that were inside and sort of, I wouldn't say they were mollified. I wouldn't say that they were sort of satiated or pleased by being able to touch the game, but it at least, one of the key phrases, and definitely correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but It was I wanted to hate it, but I liked it or I enjoyed it or something like that.
Yeah.
That we were hearing from a lot of the people that were very skeptical.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
heard from a lot of people that really did enjoy it. And I think, and it's like there's a lot of media there that did get to play it and enjoyed it. And even I said, after I played it, I'm like, okay, I can see where they're going with this. It might be a kind of a cool mobile game. Um, it's just, but no matter what, like, it's not for me. I don't,
Hmm.
I don't play like if I'm gonna play a game on the go, I take my Nintendo Switch with me. I take a device specifically for that reason. Like my phone is my livelihood a lot of times. I don't sit there and play a lot of games on it because I need the battery life.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Um, I'm not gonna sit there. If I'm somewhere, um, like more than likely, I'm not somewhere where I'm gonna be able to play a game anyway. I need to be paying attention to other things. If I'm somewhere where I need to play a game or I want to play a game, I very likely have my Nintendo Switch with me, and that's how I'm gonna play a game. And I don't like on my phone, like my screen isn't the biggest thing in the world. And when I was playing it, like I felt like my thumbs were covering like the majority of the action,
Hmm.
and that annoys me. And it doesn't feel super responsive, and that annoys me a bit too. Like, and that's why I'd rather play it on a device specifically made to play, a game on. I don't feel like
Mhm.
phones are specifically made to play a game on. It's just a device that has game capabilities.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and and I remember talking a little bit with Wyatt on that, and he goes, well, maybe the tablet because it will play on the tablet.
Yep.
Maybe that's the way. Maybe if you want to play this game, maybe that's the way to go because then your thumbs aren't covering the action. You can see most of everything. The controls, might feel a little bit better. But I don't play games on the tablet either. Like I don't play any games on the tablet, and I have no desire to play any games on the tablet. That's just not the device that I game on. And I know that I'm not their target audience, and because I know that there's tons of people where their phone is their gaming device, and those are the people that they're targeting. And that's why I'm going to go back again where this was the wrong way to announce this because this game was not made for me. The person that goes to BlizzCon, the guy that's been doing content creation for Blizzard stuff for over 15 years now,
Hmm.
this was not made for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it's important to like say how much we do or do not play mobile games. I don't. I have had a couple of them in the past, but they've maybe lasted or kept my attention for a few hours at best, and they've often all felt sort of like gimmicks. None of them really felt like complete games or things that I would want to invest time in. And I think one of the most salient points you made there was you use your phone for so many other things. It's almost like the specificity of the device matters quite a bit. Like you own a DSLR camera because you want to take pictures.
Hmm.
Right.
You don't rely on your phone for the highest fidelity of photographic experience, right? It's a convenience. It's nice when you're with a friend, say, let's take a selfie. Oh my God. Like, that's great. But it's not going to be the thing that you take your most important photographs on. And to gamers, their most important thing would be like, what gaming experience am I going to get? Like, what am I spending my hours on when I set aside time to game? And that's why we build these thousands upon thousands of dollar PCs and upgrade them with the latest parts and graphic cards and stuff. Like, we care about that.
And if I play a mobile game, like it's going to be something that I can, while I'm waiting in line, I can open up and I can kind of toy around with for 5 minutes, if that. Pokemon Go is a good example of just because I play that, I do play that on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Of just opening it up, catching a couple things, going cool, send some gifts to some people, um, uh, see a Pokestop, spin it, I'm done. for the next, maybe 20, 30 minutes. And then I might open it up again while I'm bored and do a couple other things in a couple minutes. Um, Games like that where I can just open it up and do a couple things and just waste my time a little bit on it.
Yeah.
Games that I have to sit there and grind is not the style of game that I'm gonna want to play on my phone. I don't play any games where I have to level up, or grind out things over long period of time. I don't where I have to worry about getting certain items, making my character stronger, things like that. It's just like if I can just open it up, do a couple things, and feel good about myself, I'm fine.
Yeah, I want to say I think I probably got I played through the demo about 12 or 13 times. I played each one of the classes, multiple times to try and get a good feel for it. And my overall experience was first time playing each one of the classes. It took a little bit. I think that specifically the wizard is definitely very early in development. That one, just playing the wizard did not feel good. And I want to say I hope anyone out there that was at BlizzCon and only played the demo once or twice and you only play the wizard, you missed out on a lot, because it was nowhere near what the barbarian or the monk were in terms of play.
Agreed.
I honestly, I'm not sure why they included it, because it felt playing through. I think I played through on the monk first and then on the wizard second, and it definitely felt like this is a really different experience. And in the final dungeon, I felt as if I was kind of being carried. Before I could go through and even get a skill off, everything was dead. Until we went through and we got to the final boss. But the monk and the barbarian were actually, for me, relatively engaging. They had a little bit of the skill interaction going on, whether it was the sweeping strike to pull everything in, followed up by a 7-sided strike in order to kill elites or kill big groups of mobs, or even just on the barbarian, going and sending out the hooks, pulling everything in, and then a hammer of the ancients, go and slam them down. It did have some nice, interesting, skill interactions, gameplay mechanics,
some combos.
Yeah, that felt good. You felt I'm figuring it out, type thing. But it was only about 15 minutes worth of gameplay, just a little bit, and the whole process of having the scripted boss at the end, and just tons of enemies on the screen. For me, it was fun, and it was it's starting to get close to what the Diablo experience could be on mobile. And I had problems with the control scheme. I want to say probably for the first 5 playthroughs across the different classes, but by the end, I played the monk probably the most, because I think I only played the wizard twice and the barbarian 4 times, and everything else was on the monk. And it started to get a really good flow going down. The boss is about to do the super big attack. I'll just hit 7-sided strike, go immune, so I miss it, or I'll kick out of the way and then kick back in. So I kind of you can kick through them for damage, miss the attack, and then kick back in for more, and not lose a beat. It started actually getting the feeling for the controls after having played it for a while, that it started really feeling this game could have it going on. But again, it's one of those things I feel as if I have to preface everything. I 100% trust that the people of the quality of Wyatt or Matthew Berger and such are capable of making a really good, very engaging mobile game that could help act as a branch between the mobile and the PC markets, and maybe get more people into going through and trying out mobile games. But I don't. As good as the game is going to be, I don't want to sit there and feel that I have to pay $100 a month in order to play the game. And that's what I'm expecting from NetEase. And
Yeah.
so no matter how good the game is, it's all comes down to the monetization.
Yeah, that's 100% how I feel. The game itself feels good. If I were, well, the caveat I would have is if I was interested in mobile games to begin with, that kind of mobile game to begin with. It felt good. It felt fine. I would just never play it, even if wasn't NetEase and it was just Blizzard putting it in. Like, I'm with you. I'm 100% confident that Blizzard could put out a good mobile game and a good Diablo experience on mobile. Um, and I still would not play it, even if you take NetEase out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that there's lots of people that will. And that's why I said it's in. You guys heard me tell this to Brandy when she asked my opinion. You heard me tell it to Wyatt when he asked my opinion. It's just not a game made for me.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
I was hearing that a lot. And I want to echo both your sentiments. Like, I think the game as it was for a demo did seem to have, and this is something that we were sort of being told repeatedly, was they're really focusing right now on the moment to moment combat, the gameplay. That's what they want to nail down first, which is another reason they were using to say they weren't ready to share a lot of the other details, because that was what they were focusing on. So like monetization, even like, stuff as far as like which phone is this best for, which like platforms will it support, or sorry, which phones will it support, things like that. Obviously they're not going to say like only play it on Android or something, because they want to alienate the other side. But there were just a lot of those questions in the interviews. Almost felt like, well, why are we even asking these questions? Why are we here? The game itself did feel fun to play once you got some of the mechanics down, especially if you weren't approaching it as a mobile gamer. Figuring out the thumbsticks and even using the skills to aim and stuff on that right hand side. That was kind of uniquely intriguing. And I think they will get there in terms of making it a game that at least has some Diablo feel to it, like without being able to see. I think again, this is like one of those things, without being able to see itemization, without being able to see customization, how the character is going to be built, the skills all working in unison, the choice of the player to put stuff together. Like it's still so far away from knowing exactly how much of a Diablo game this will be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Jerry said it probably best. Like regardless of the names on this, like if it's not for you, it's just not ever. There's nothing that they could really do or put in there that would make it palatable.
And to be fair, like it's really okay if Blizzard did not make a game for me.
Yeah.
Right. They don't.
It's completely okay. It's fine. Like,
Yeah, I don't play Overwatch.
Yeah, like if the only thing that was disappointing and upsetting was just how they announced it.
Yeah.
And where they announced it. They can make any games that they want, and I'm completely fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can choose to play it or not, and that's okay. But to do it at a convention where your core gamers are at and where your biggest fans are going for, to expect something big and then do that is really what hurt.
Yeah. I want to use this opportunity to bring in our thoughts, because we've been sort of speaking as the community looking at it, and I want to bring in the flip side, right? Let's pretend that we are Blizzard, that we are the developers. With seeing the strategy, right? The fact that they're going after a market that they're not really in. Hearthstone exists on mobile, but it wasn't made for mobile, right? So it's sort of like a happenstance that it just so happens to work there. And it does well for them. But this is sort of their first attempt at building something from the ground up, like they've been saying, solely for the market. And one of the biggest things that I took away from the group interview was Alan Adham saying, we want to be top 10 in both the Eastern region and the Western region. And it's almost this fight when you think about it, then it's like, well, to be successful in the East, we know what that takes. We've seen those games. Holy crap, that's crazy. The West would never accept what would have to go into one of those games when it's successful out there. Yeah. So how do you bridge that gap? Like how do they, what exactly are they trying to do here? And I'll add in just one quick thing. Is there potential here that they're priming the platform, they're priming the way for whatever does come next? Because again, we have talked about sort of the technology jump here, engine-wise. So this game is going to potentially do things that Diablo 3 can't. And is this sort of a way for them to experiment, not just for Blizzard as a whole, but specifically to Diablo, where now they can maybe get some features or things that they are considering for the next PC entry onto that and see how it performs, or is that sort of being a little too optimistic?
I mean, like, I have to think in the back of my mind. A lot of this is definitely almost like a kind of a test bed for what comes next. As they're going through and working on these types of engines and getting this type of experience and such. It was just like I was saying earlier. Like they're going to start with like 9 like huge zones, and then like the 7 instance dungeons to go through and play through with different quests and such to add replayability to it. That will have like kind of like an in-game loot system. They'll have they mentioned, I don't remember whether it was in the what's next panel or the group interview, that they said they kind of have like this idea in their head of like monthly update cycles and
Mm-hmm.
being able to go through and add it in. And they were already upfront and going through and saying, well, here's the 6 classes that you'll start at launch, but we're definitely open to going through and making in more. Like, what do you want to play? And then they started joking around about like the druid and such. So this definitely is like one of those things. These are all the things that we as a community have been asking for, either to come out of Diablo 3 or whatever comes next. And they're putting it, and this could be a nice test bed. But yeah, we definitely would hope that this is a test for a lot of the things, or at least not specifically that the entire purpose of the game is a test, but
Right.
they're kind of putting some of these things in and then looking at what they can then extrapolate out to Diablo 4.
Yeah. With your sort of experience in the industry so far, JR, um, what would you, I guess, if you've seen any other companies do this or experience something like this, I think one of the things that comes to mind for me is sort of how Fortnite is
Yeah.
probably putting pressure on a lot of other developers to say, oh man, this game is totally taking over. They were able to get it with crossplay on multiple platforms. They're on the mobile platform as well and killing it. So I'm wondering if you see, Blizzard being inspired by this or envious of this, and is that, can you imagine that
Um.
that's part of what's happening here? Or
So to a degree, I think I said this at the beginning of the show or towards the beginning. And this is, I want to say this is either an article I wrote about or something I might have wrote about in tweets 2 years ago. Because 2 years ago at BlizzCon, we learned that Adam was rejoining Blizzard after being gone for like 10 years. For those that don't know the name, he was one of the co-founders of Blizzard. He was at the time, before he left, he was the lead designer of World of Warcraft. So he's a big deal. He's basically what created Blizzard in the games that we know Blizzard for. And when he came back to Blizzard, his whole thing that he was doing was creating these incubation projects, and he's very high up on mobile because he thinks that is gaming in the future.
hmm.
So when that happened, we knew about this 2 years. Like he talked about wanting to send Blizzard into the mobile space, and all of that. And this is the first game that I believe that is his influence. He probably was the one that set this all up and started on that path. And we're going to see more of this. This isn't going to be the first Blizzard mobile game we're going to see. It's not going to be the last. I take that back. It's the first sort of like real one. Like Hearthstone is mobile, but it's also PC. But it's not going to be the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see more of this. And that's why I said this is a new era of Blizzard, whether it's good or bad. I do think, though, there is a space there where you don't alienate your core audience, which is your PC gamers, your console gamers, and that there is some crossover that you can do, because bringing Overwatch to the Switch would be pretty cool. Bringing over your mobile device would actually be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I wouldn't play it, it would open the door up for more people to play your game. And I think Blizzard needs to think about that just a little bit. That if they're wanting to get into the mobile space, that they need to start thinking about their core audience, um, and then doing something mobile related, like doing something for their core audience. And if they want to do something mobile, like do it on the side as part of that core experience. That's not going to take away from that core experience. And I'm not sure if Blizzard's doing that, to be honest. So, well, if anything, like we know that they're not, because Diablo Immortal probably wouldn't have happened this way if they were. Um, Instead, they should have, in my opinion, done something where they did, if they were working on Diablo 4, announce Diablo 4 at some point, show it off, and then go, oh, also you can play it on your mobile device. You
There
can
you
play it
go.
on your PC. You can play it on your PS4. Guess what? You can play it on your phone, and it would all be seamless. That's what Fortnite does, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what PUBG does, and those have proven to be very popular. And so it makes me wonder if maybe, hopefully, Blizzard's planning on doing something like that instead of going all in on what they did with Diablo Immortal.
And that's the crazy thing is like I 100% believe you, or believe that path of take the route where your next major entry into the Diablo franchise is available on all platforms simultaneously from release. Like that, I don't even doubt that that won't happen. To do a double negative.
Yeah. And for me, like coming from like the lore and story aspect, like this is the game that I've always wanted, because this is allowing me to go and explore like every nook and cranny, like in the map. This is going through everything besides, I believe, like Westmarch and the Forgotten Tower are like brand new zones that we've never seen before. They're filling in like all all the little unknown areas that we've seen in the world map, and going and exploring more into the lore. Like if you follow the lore at all, you know that like demons are immortal, angels are not. Angels, their essence will be reborn as a new entity, but not as themselves. Material was a unique in his aspect of his ability to come back. But all the demons, Diablo, Baal, even like little runty minions and such, will eventually be reformed. And they had concept art for this giant like demonic chamber with it almost looks like it's like drawing like souls into it and such. It's called the Resurrection Chamber. In the middle of like this burning heart is like the shadow of Diablo. And they went and talked about at the Q&A panel on day 2 that his like top lieutenant, which they just showed some concept art for, Skarn, is looking to try and resurrect his master, in between the events of D2 and D3. And it's just like these are questions that I've just been burning and dying to know as someone that really enjoys the story. And it's like I don't know, it's it would be really cool if they're using this as a way to get people in, set up some like base standards of here's the world, here's the story, and then now we're actually going to really put the spotlight on Diablo 4, Diablo Next, so that way you can actually go out there with a like an MMO ARPG like persistent world where you feel as if you have an impact on the events that are coming to Sanctuary and such.
Yeah. As you were talking, I just realized that this release also makes the prequel prediction come true, which is an angle I hadn't considered yet.
It's not the prequel we thought it was, but technically is one, and it's a sequel.
Yeah.
To Diablo 2.
To Diablo 2. How about that? Oh my goodness. Something I did want to, I don't know if it's sort of a non sequitur, but maybe it ties in, is to introduce the history of how the development team and just the Diablo brand, I suppose, has interacted with the community. If you can bring yourself back to the days of Diablo 3 Vanilla, 2012, 2013, you remember that there was a bit of like fighting back and forth between the community and the development team. It was sort of this, we know what you want from the development team, community saying, no, that's not what we want this, and them saying, no, you don't know what you want still, we're going to give you this. And eventually this sort of shift that made it so that there was less fighting, more teaming up, compromising, coming together to get ideas into the game that both sides could be happy with. And it felt like they repaired a lot of the communication with the community by the time Reaper came out and multiple patches came out. And you can even recall back to, I think it was 2 BlizzCons ago, where they gave us the next slate of stuff that was going to happen in D3, right? They were like, here's Kanai's Cube and what it does, and that's coming next year. And here's the armory and what it does, and that's coming next year. Here's a bunch of items. These are coming next year. So they sort of set us up to know what the future looked like. And I
Well,
remember,
even last year with just communicating that, hey, don't expect anything.
oh yeah, yeah, that's another great point to bring in too. It's like they have been cognizant of the community at any given point wanting to know certain things, and there have been times where they've sort of coalesced and let us in, and there were times back in the day in particular where they were really about keeping us out and just telling us what we want. And so now it's odd to see that occur and feel really good about how it was changing, only for them to kind of get skittish on us again. And I'm wondering if it is because of that history of the, the promises like PvP and then it didn't come true and some of the backlash from that. Or even I can recall there was a time where, well, I'm not going to pin it on a dev, even though I do remember who said it, but like one of the devs was like, we're going to put a legendary power on every item. And then that never happened either, right? There are these moments where they say things and we hold them as the community to them. Like oh, you said it, it's 100% happening now. And I don't know if you guys feel it too, but do you think that that might be a reason why they're so, if you can live in a world where maybe they did have something planned to say this is going to be D4, but they're so scared of like, well, what if we say it and then it takes, we have another reset of the project or another 6 years and it's not yet out?
Well, that was one of their problems with Diablo 3, right?
Right.
They announced it too early.
Yeah. It was,
Yeah, and what they announced and what we got, what they showed and what we got were two different, well, not necessarily two different things, but they were very different things.
There were a lot of iterations
Yeah.
in those 4 years.
Yep.
And so since then, because that happened in 2008 when they announced Diablo 3, and then it took 4 years for it to come out, and that was a really long time for them to do that. And then when it did come out, it didn't necessarily meet people's expectations, and that was a problem. It's so much of a problem that Mike Morhaime apologized for it. So you lost a lot of goodwill with your Diablo fans because of that. You gained a lot of goodwill with your Diablo fans with Reaper of Souls, the ones that decided to still stick around.
And the closing of the Real Money Auction House.
Yes, and the closing of the Real Money Auction House,
Well,
which I still hold today, wasn't that bad of an idea. It was just executed poorly because of other systems.
Because, the loot system was basically designed with the Real Money Auction House in mind.
Right. And that sucks. That was the core of the problem. The Real Money Auction House, I understood their intentions with it. They just executed it badly. I don't think they did it to, make a pretty quick buck off of the players. I think they really did do it based on with the player in mind, but it just wasn't executed correctly. And they churned it around and they took that away. They fixed it. They made the loot system way better. They made the game way better, and I think they got a lot of goodwill from that. And they learned from it. And unfortunately, I think from learning from that, they're scared of announcing something too early without showing, hey, this is coming out next year. This is coming out in 2 years.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that, they probably won't announce.
I mean, what is it? I think we're gonna. since Diablo 4, now the longest that we've gone from like announcement to release is gonna be WoW Classic.
Yeah.
And what they
And
did
they
with WoW
announced WoW
Classic,
Classic without a demo.
yeah, WoW Classic is the example of, you know, the Diablo 4 that people are asking for. All it was just, you know, it's like, well, what flavor of ice cream do you like? And then just boom, title text. We're not talking about it this year, you know. And then, you
Yeah,
know, that's it.
On the flip side of that, you know what you're getting out of a WoW Classic game because you
Yeah,
played it.
that's true.
yeah.
That
This
is
is, I mean, yeah, that is a good point. And then also at the same time, like if you go through and do it, I guess kind of thinking, you know, back in the mentality of like thinking as like trying to think why Blizzard did the things that they did. That your big overseas, you know, distribution arm, you get NetEase, you know, because NetEase handles all of Blizzard's distribution in China. Every Blizzard game goes through NetEase for its China release. And you know, so you're going through and you have this partnership that you're going through and developing the game together. That there probably is at least like a little bit of expectation or even pressure from your development partner that, hey, we want this announced at BlizzCon, and then you're going to hold back other announcements because you don't want to take the focus off of that game.
hmm.
You know, as you know, potential reasoning for, you know, why they did the things that they did. Because I mean, there is some other news that did come out of BlizzCon that we haven't really talked about. That apparently there's going to be some big changes coming in season 16, and that they haven't forgotten about Diablo 3, and it seems that we're actually set to get some sort of like little content update that they're going to do more with the seasonal changes coming up here. But you know, they didn't. We didn't get any panels or discussion about that. I think a lot of that came from Brandy talking on Riker's stream while he was streaming Immortal.
Yeah. And it felt like that actually potentially should have, in retrospect, had more public presence, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
panel dedicated to it. Actually, this is a great opportunity to introduce day two of BlizzCon, because there's two parts to that, which is one, there was yet a second panel that revolved around Diablo Immortal, which was sort of worlds, so a lot of lore and building of the characters' backgrounds, the classes' backgrounds, and also a Q&A. And you can certainly speak more towards that, Nine.
Apparently, you're not allowed to ask a lore question at a lore panel.
No,
Is what I learned from
especially if
that.
you're the lore guy.
Yeah. Yeah, screw it. I'm talking about it. So apparently, because I had the opportunity to be in the B-roll footage of the closing ceremony for BlizzCon, which if you're a Blizzard fan and they offered you like the ability to do that, well, I guess more so Steven offered me the ability to do that. Would you say no? Honestly, would you say no? Of course not.
Of course not.
So I went through and did that. That was recorded before the opening ceremony. That was actually recorded the same day. And before anyone gives me shit about, well, he's wearing the same hoodie. I live in Florida. I own one sweater, you know, for like the 2 days a year that it actually gets below 70 degrees. But then of course, like it's just funny because I have all these people that have been going through and attacking me over it. Like, you have no idea who I am. I've been spending years, like almost a decade, building myself up as like the Diablo lore guy. So if you find it weird that someone who has built like their online presence as like the lore master, it's in my Twitter, like the lore master of Sanctuary, would go to a lore panel and then ask a lore question, and that would mean that I'm a PR plant. God, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't.
I do not. So I'm gonna go off on a small tangent, just real quick. I do not understand all of the conspiracy theories that people keep coming up with and attacking content creators and media personalities that were corporate shills, that were paid by Blizzard, that were paid to promote all of this stuff. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like I even got like blasted for it on Twitter. I'm just like, dude, I'm just a dude that like does this as a hobby, and I'm a fan like you. To anybody listening, or you know, anybody not doing content creation, I'm just a fan that enjoys doing this stuff. And um, crap, they pay me nothing. I get $0 from Blizzard. I get $0 for doing this. I spend money. I spend money to do this. So it's just, anyway, the conspiracy theories, Get out of here with that. That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna say.
And well said. I think, man, that was sort of where the passion of the community. Because one thing I want to do is acknowledge that for whatever form it took, sometimes too hostile, but honestly, from passionate outrage, or I don't know what you want to call it, man, but people voicing their opinions in a very contested way. I think some of that was okay. I think the time where it got the worst was when it started to attack people's personal lives or dive
Mm-hmm.
into
Yeah.
making people feel unsafe. That's never okay. And just talking to some of the people that were targets of that stuff, like I personally I felt bad for them and I felt scared for them. I was like, am I going to wake up and are my friends going to be okay? Will their addresses be released? And people, like, I think it was Riker said in one of his videos, like someone typed in chat, like stab Wyatt or something. Like it was getting out of hand. It was getting
Mm-hmm.
so bad. So I understand when you have a point and you really want to make it, but the way you choose to state your points or how you word things, it matters a lot. And I think you can actually hurt the validity of your case if you take it to a point where, because it's so personal to you, you start to personally attack people. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind. I think we all agree on that. Um, One thing I did want to mention within the realm of all this was the tone change in day two as well. It was sort of when we started to get that key PR phrase of multiple projects. It became sort of another one of the memes of the convention. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
have you heard there are multiple projects? So that was something that it seemed there was like a midnight meeting or some in between day one, day two, where they were just like, what in the world do we do to curb this tide of insanity or craziness or just riled up feelings and emotions, and that
Mm-hmm.
seemed to be what they used to try to placate people. I kind of feel like, though, this ties back into what I was trying to bring up to you guys before. It might not be enough to say it anymore, though. I think it's really, and this might be like what will Blizzard do going forward, but I think they have to show it. I think they have to show that D4 is there.
I,
They've
I
already ruined their multiple projects speech because they hyped people up before BlizzCon with it and gave us Diablo Immortal and their goodwill on multiple projects being their PR speak right now is like that's not going to work.
mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry to talk over you, Whitney.
No, no, no. I mean that's definitely one of those ones because actually just a couple hours ago, Nevelistus did it was a couple hours before we went live with the show, did post on the official forums saying that we hear you and that everything that since they've gotten back into the office on Monday, they've been discussing everything Diablo nonstop. We're fully committed to listening and engaging, so please keep the constructive feedback coming. Our primary focus right now is poring over all the feedback that has all that feedback to inform internal decisions, and we'll follow up with further thoughts as soon as we can. And a lot of the comments that I've been seeing that have been coming through in that it's been like, well, thanks. I'm glad that you're acknowledging like the disappointment, but
But
can you do more? Like, it's one of those things. And if you go back over to Reddit, it's even like a bit harsher, because they're specifically pointing out, like, I guess there's some sort of controversy that happened in World of Warcraft a while ago when Lore had said, we hear you. And that had caused some sort of other controversy and such. And so a lot of people are just going through and saying, we've heard this before. Like, we're no longer willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. We do appreciate you going through and kind of like offering like the olive branch by saying this, but before we really give you that benefit of the doubt, we need something back. So I guess this is definitely one of those ones where it's like, it is good to go through and say that Blizzard is listening, and that Blizzard is there. And I could go through and say that the conversations that were had at the convention, like outside of the interviews and the panels and such, that they definitely are. They really
mm-hmm.
are. But the community itself, they weren't there. They weren't at the convention. We can say it till we're blue in the face. Other content creators have gone and said a lot of other things, to the same extent, but it comes down to seeing is believing, and that's what the community wants. they're not going to take my word for it. They're not going to take your word for it and
Right.
such. They want to hear it from Blizzard. They want to see it in blue text. That's what it is.
And eh, I think Brandy's response, that forum post, helps. I thought it was really well done, and it was nice to know. Okay, they're they're talking about it. They're listening to the feedback. They're gonna do something about it. Don't expect that you're gonna get something about it right now.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
Yeah.
a while
Yeah.
because they need to figure it out.
Yeah,
Because they screwed up. That's all there is to it.
it's definitely one of those ones where they're definitely they're starting something from scratch. I'm sure they did not have anything prepared to handle this type of response, and so anything who knows? It probably won't be till December till we get any type of real big feedback from them on this scenario and what they're going to do going forward for the community and such. Though I do wonder, since season 16 or season 15 is supposed to end halfway through December. Usually they don't push content in that second half of December, so we might have a little bit of a big break, going into season 16 early January. But we should probably sometime, I would imagine, before Thanksgiving, start seeing some form, if depending upon how big the changes are, if they're going to be something that warrants a PTR, that we should be seeing it soon, and whatever information they have to share with us coming up after that.
Yeah, I think that'll be the beginning of maybe earning some player favor back. Just showing that there is still commitment to D3, that there will still be things to expect from the game. I even saw, I guess we were sort of talking about this or around this a little bit, but just the idea of D3 was really not present at BlizzCon. It was, a lot of people were focusing on the absence of a D4 announcement. Despite the blog post before sort of talking us away from that point. And then, of course, a major focus on Diablo Immortal. So now you're looking at the mobile platform. But D3, really, the only shine it got was that, hey, we launched it onto Nintendo Switch. And then that was it. It was never mentioned again at the convention. And when that's also the thing that now your perturbed fans are leaving BlizzCon with, and that's the game they have to go back home to play, it feels really bad that not even the future of that game was touched at all. You're still in murky waters as to, well, is the Necromancer the last thing that really happened for this in 2.6.1? Or are we going to get something else? So I think if they can, and if they do plan to make any significant changes, or, seasonal themes maybe go in a different direction to be more substantial, that should help. It won't solve everything, of course, and there will still be flames to be cooled off, but it should start the healing process, perhaps.
Yeah, and that's.
I have a question for you guys.
Go ahead.
What do you think Blizzard would need to do to make this right and make the community happy? And what do you think Blizzard will actually do?
Dang, great question. So I guess in my heart of hearts, what I would want is, and see, it's weird because to me, I guess it's weird because I feel like I definitely have a lot more patience than the average, community member, perhaps, and maybe a lot more faith.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily feel like I need a D4 announcement because I still believe and I still kind of know that it's happening, it's out there. So I don't really need them to commit to it. But I guess if I'm thinking with more of my community hat on, some sort of acknowledgement of that, perhaps, even though it doesn't change anything. That's the biggest thing, is the game will still be years in development and years away from release, so it doesn't really change anything, but maybe just makes you sleep a little better at night, and maybe it gives you, well, I don't even know, it depends on what the announcement would also say too, because still I think people are wondering, is all of the next Diablo stuff mobile, or what really they would have to basically just say Diablo 4 for the PC, and then maybe that's exactly what you need. So there's that aspect to it. But I think really for my personal life as a content creator, as someone that's looking at the mobile platform being how do I stream this? Do I want to stream this for 8 hours? I couldn't imagine doing a 24-hour mobile stream. Are you kidding me? That's insane. So just thinking like from that perspective, man, I need something that I can refresh my YouTube content with, something that I can enjoy really streaming with again. And I think that's probably going to have to do with a D3 update of some sort. So that would, at least for me, start to help me feel better about what I didn't see at BlizzCon and what I want to see next year.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's going to require maybe a bit of a culture change, at Blizzard. And I with, last year's there's no news, and then this year's, we're working on multiple projects, that they might be beginning to take some steps in that direction. But I think the Blizzard following the announcement and launch of Diablo 3 has become a lot more less open to announcing that the projects that they're working on. Maybe it's because of the development time of how long it took with Diablo 3, the hype around Project Titan, and then it getting canned and turning into Overwatch. That they might just be uh, too hesitant to commit to anything. But it seems weird to me that when you're not developing like a new IP, you're developing the next entry in the series. It's going to happen. Diablo 3 underwent like 3 or 4 different iterations where it was just scrapped completely and rebuilt like from the ground up. But it happened. It took 11 years, but it happened. That is one of those ones where it's like, I think just the slightest, you don't have to make a big fanfare. It doesn't even need to be a video. You just need, something from like Alan Adham, or J. Allen Brack or something like that to come onto the forums and say, we know what the community wants. The community wants Diablo 4 because it's the next entry, it's the next PC entry in the series. And we just want to, confirm the fact that we are exploring what that will look like, type thing of what that game will be, and that we're working on, and just that. I don't think that will completely, it will still take time, for the community to get back to the what it was. But I do think that's like really the big thing that's going to be required in order to kind of like rekindle the faith, or even just like going through and announcing what your content plan for Diablo 3 is. Like, you don't maybe necessarily have to announce Diablo 4, but go out and say, well, we're exploring future character classes, or
Hmm.
we're going to be doing some content features. We'll have once a year balance patch. We won't be doing one for every season, but once every year, we'll have a balance patch that will maybe make some changes or add different affixes into some legacy, legendary items or something like that. But maybe just giving us a roadmap of what we can expect, because right now I think the community is reeling so much is because they have no idea what's coming. Are they going to be left on 2.6.1 forever?
Forever, yeah.
And so the community, the PC community, wants to know what's next, and that is what they need to find out.
I think I think they need to do a couple things, and like I understand what you guys are saying about wanting to see like Diablo 3 updates and things like that. I feel like this mistake is bigger. That the people that they upset aren't all necessarily Diablo 3 players. They're just Diablo fans.
Hmm.
Maybe they don't play Diablo 3 anymore right now. I don't think a Diablo 3 update with the mistake as big as what they made is going to appease the vast global community. It might appease your guys, Diablo, your hardcore Diablo fans that still play Diablo 3. I think it'll appease you guys, but I don't think it's going to appease the internet. The internet. I think what they have to do is they need to make like a video with an apology to the community on, we listened, we screwed up, we know what we did wrong. and we're dedicated to our core audience. We know that we didn't see this coming. We're vastly incorrect about it, and we won't let this happen again. Because one of the core values of Blizzard is their community, and they're vastly out of touch with their community, and that's why they made the mistake that they did. So they need to make some kind of an apology on that. And then what would be awesome is if after that apology they're like, well, we have something more, and then go into a Diablo 4 announcement like they with maybe showing off some screens or something like that, and saying we're 100% dedicated to our core audience, our PC audience. Diablo 4 is coming. It's coming out at some point in the future, and we're targeting the PC audience and other platforms.
Yeah.
But specifically saying we're targeting the PC audience, like if it is other platforms. I think that's the only way that they're going to make this 100% right. And I think the only way they do that is if the rumors were true that they were going to announce Diablo 4 at BlizzCon and then decided against it
right
a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why my initial response was kind of two-sided, because they're definitely, I think you did a great job of sort of setting the stage. There are those who maybe don't even pay attention to Diablo stuff throughout the year, but all the eyes turn when BlizzCon comes up, right? Because you expect that to be where you can get your jaw-dropping announcement, where you can get your hype from, and you're probably, if you are done with D3, then you're not looking for patch notes and updates and content stuff there. So like for us that run a D3 podcast, we'd love content, right? Because content drives future episodes, drives giving us things to talk about, drives me being able to justify another 10,000 hours in this friggin' game. And then the other side, and that's why I feel like sometimes it's hard for me to step out of me and think about exactly what the more casual observers, for lack of a better phrase, would be feeling and thinking. And I do think your strategy there, your PR strategy, would go over well. Like if I'm seeing that video in my head, I'm thinking, wow, that's well received by the community. That's something that gets 10, 100,000, 300,000 up likes or whatever the heck it is on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Reverse the course a little bit.
Because I can tell you that's one of those things. It's like I had my own like knee-jerk reaction on Friday, from like just seeing how the community was just like overreacting, and so I had a knee-jerk to their knee-jerk and was just like, oh god, it's like the Diablo community at it again. But then as like the community stopped being so just like, I guess, I'm trying to look for the word for it. They weren't specifically like, saying, the pitchforks were coming down. The criticisms became a little bit more constructive, and people were actually not just going through and saying, F Blizzard and stuff like that. And they were going and laying out their feelings about why they felt like this announcement betrayed them and such. I began, to be more sympathetic to how the community itself was feeling. And if you go on to Reddit now, it's still it's a very very like emotionally charged place. But I think it's been tempered, and you're seeing a lot more like actual well thought out responses. And that as a lot of the community content creators are getting home now, and they're creating their own responses and such. Like, I haven't even watched it yet, but Riker made an hour-long video for his thoughts and feelings on everything, and I'm really looking forward to going through and checking it out, because he seemed to be really down, and not just concerned about like the game, but like there are people like him that Diablo is his livelihood. And so it's something that, not even if it's the next step like Diablo Immortal is going to be on mobile, how do I monetize that? His big concern was, well, how does Blizzard repair the damage done with the community? Because if the community just doesn't want to consume Diablo content anymore, that screws me over.
Yeah, there goes your audience.
Your audience is gone. And so it's one of those ones that's just like, I definitely, I'm feeling more of like the community's I'm feeling like their anger, that it is something that it definitely is not one of those ones where I feel on Friday, yeah, it was definitely misspoken. But as time has gone on, they've found they found better ways of putting of their frustrations and such with how everything was handled.
Yeah, and actually that goes back to Brandy's post that is popping up now. I think it's actually good timing on that front because people seem more open to civil discourse and debating sort of like where do we go from here, feedback to the scenario of BlizzCon and how it all went down. So I think some of the collection of information that she gets will be more useful than what she probably would have gotten if she asked that on Saturday, right, or Monday, or days closer to sort of the epicenter of the event. I think it is worth to go back because JR, you actually had a second part to your question, right? Is like, what do we think they'll actually do?
Yeah.
I I love your idea and it got me excited, and then like I almost wanted to temper my excitement because it feels too good to be true that they would do
Yep.
that.
It does.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I feel like it's the right step. But again, it's like I guess also it kind of goes into what you said right when you were finishing, is that it kind of only works if that rumor is true that D4 was going to be announced and got pulled, right? Because then it would have the
Yeah.
content.
Yep.
So my guess is if what they'll actually do it likely would still be, maybe it does come in the form of a video because the videos seem to be more emotionally compelling. Like it's something that you have to look at a face telling you something, and if you apologize to me face to face as you can, I feel like that might go over better than just reading words on the screen. Um,
Yeah.
so less of a blog post, more of a video. But I guess I could see
Hmm.
an apology. I still don't see the D4 reveal or anything like that.
Yeah. I think either way they have to make an apology. And I know there's people out there that's like, why does Blizzard owe you an apology? And they really don't. But to be honest, but there's a certain degree that you have to still like you have to win that good faith back from your community.
Mm,
And if the community feels like they just got gut punched, which we have seen people in the chat say that's how they felt, you do need to make a good faith effort to say, okay, we realize what we did incorrectly and we went about this the wrong way. And I think that would go a long ways at making people feel better. I think the biggest part of it, though, the biggest thing they need to do if they go that route, even if they don't do a D4 reveal, is to say 100% we are committed to our core audience
mm,
and our PC gamers, our console gamers, and those that don't play on them.
Hmm.
And
yeah.
will be something. Even if they don't announce anything, it's just giving that just telling people that would go a long ways, because I even in your chat room here, I've seen a lot of people say we're not getting Diablo 4. We're not getting Diablo 4 for the PC. We're not, Diablo's dead. Diablo's
Yeah.
not, nothing's going to come from Diablo. It's just going to be this mobile game. And I think Blizzard needs to correct that.
Hmm.
Well said. I agree. All right, so we've gone almost 2 hours here. I
I
think
wanted to talk about the Switch.
it's great giving them friend codes.
As soon as I unboxed mine,
Yeah, right. That's like the next
I
step.
ran past it in order to go through and get to the computer.
I think it's worth noting that we are going to likely run out of time here to do community emails, but an idea that we did have as we were flying back to home is that we'd probably benefit, and hopefully this isn't beating BlizzCon to death, because I think that it's certainly an important thing to talk about. Again, our community kind of is still looking and healing and trying to find answers, so it's probably still worth it to just have people talk and feel heard. We wanted to do a community roundtable, and we'd like to do that this coming weekend. So basically what we would like people to do, if you want to be part of it, we're going to try to limit the amount of voices, so that's not just like 20 people trying to talk all at once, because that would be wild. So we're definitely going to try to get as many people as we can that we think is feasible in like a Discord chat our Discord voice chat and record that as sort of bonus Westmarch Workshop content, just send an email to westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. If you're interested, we'll also put this on Twitter as well for a call for community. And ideally, we'll just kind of, have some questions or maybe just open forum for people to talk and hear from the community, because it's important that, again, we've kind of said our piece here, but we need to still keep collecting stories and feelings and data from everyone else, just to really work through this together. And if I've missed anything, feel free to say anything else. But yeah, once we get the sort of the idea of who we'll have, then we'll go through and plan the time and the date. But it's likely going to be either Saturday or Sunday this coming weekend. Westmarch Workshop at blizzpro.com.
And then also, we do have plans to record another episode, the Westmarch Workshop, next Wednesday. So you won't have to wait 2 weeks. We'll be doing one next week, where we'll be bringing on Dread Scythe to go through and get like the last little bit of the opinions from like Blizz Pro and the full Westmarch Workshop crew.
Absolutely, and that means that
Diablotron together.
powers combined. That does mean that we won't do an episode the day before Thanksgiving, which is why there's all this schedule shifting and stuff. But it does mean you get content earlier. See, we're delivering content. We're doing what they couldn't. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's sort of your calendar outlook for November. The community roundtable this coming weekend, and then next week, the 14th, an episode, and then a break on the 21st, and we're kind of back to our bi-weekly perhaps by then, leading into the end of November, beginning of December.
Yeah, well, I'll have to wait and see, because I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things to go through and cover and talk about within the community. Diablo Immortal seems extremely early in development, so I would actually expect more or less radio silence and not a lot of coverage or anything new for them to show, at least for a little bit. And then we'll probably be going into whatever these supposed changes for Season 16 are going to be like. How big, how far-reaching, are they going to go through and mess with the seasonal formula, which hopefully we'll find out here within the next couple of weeks. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some more to talk about, and we'll have to just kind of play. Do we need to go back to weekly for a brief period of time, and just in order to cover everything as it comes?
Indeed.
So Nine Ball, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Is Diablo Immortal the Jar Jar of Star Wars?
I don't even know how to process that.
Should we just end it right there? That's like Nine Ball's broken.
The 9ball.exe is
Stopped running.
Stop running. Oh god. That's the thing. I hope not. I definitely hope not.
Sorry, I was told I had to get a Jar Jar reference in there.
Which is actually, I didn't get a Jar Jar gift this year at BlizzCon. It didn't feel complete. That was the true letdown for me at BlizzCon, is I didn't get a Jar Jar.
Maybe he speared you.
Yeah, I could only take so much.
Alright, I guess with that, it's probably just roll the standard outro spiel.
Yeah, and like we had like the little call to arms there. Please feel free to send your thoughts, your feelings, or if you want to be potentially included on that community roundtable discussion, Westmarch Workshop at blizzpro.com. Then you can also hit us up. We're on Twitter at the WM Workshop, and we live stream here usually every other Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. And then you can find out pretty much all the topics that we talked about and more at diablo.blizzpro.com. We're even in-game. We are the BlizzPro clan. And then you can also join us in our in-game community of Westmarch Workshop. And then I still hang out in Discord quite a bit at discord.gg/BlizzPro. And then you can follow us all individually. I am at 9ballgamer on Twitter, and you can follow me at twitch.tv/9ball. Leviathan is at LeviathanD3 at twitch.tv/Leviathan111. And Eldorian, would you like to go through and give your shout out for social content?
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at Eldorian. I would appreciate it more though if you gave a follow to at BlizzPro, which is our home base.
Word up. And yeah, thank you, JR, by the way, again, for taking the time out to come and talk some Diablo with us. It was great to see you over in Anaheim. And yeah, man, it's always nice to get the band back together again.
Yeah, I mean that's like the biggest reason why I go to BlizzCon anymore is getting to see you guys once a year. Getting to I'm gonna bring it out again. Getting to see Diablotron come together once a year and form into one giant Diablo group, and see how and I just kind of stick back and see kind of how you guys do your thing.
It is so funny that, you know, it's like, well, we come from so many different parts of the world, so many different kind of like backgrounds, content creators, fans, and all those stuff, and we somehow always just seem to like grow the group by like a little bit, and like
Like a
these
herd.
yeah, it's like these big meetups.
But you become one.
Like the Diablo community picture that I post every year on like my Twitter, I always pin that. That's always like my top pinned tweet. It was just like the big picture of the Diablo like content creator community and such. It just always kind of like happens. Like it's not really anything that we like really plan. It's just kind of like, oh hey, look, for whatever reason we're all here. Let's take a photo. You know, and it's just like it happens so many times throughout the convention. You'll see like, oh, there's Wolfcrier in Riker in Dropagadooski and, you know, Leviathan, and oh, why are we all here? Let's just take a photo.
Right.
Yep.
Got it done. All right. Well, with that, are there any last words?
I just want to say thanks for having me on, guys. I know that this is for like 151 episodes. First time I've been on, might be the last time I'm on. Who knows? I don't talk about Diablo much, and really appreciate that you guys brought me on to talk about this BlizzCon, because I had a lot to say, and I felt I really wanted to say it on your show.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you coming on, man.
Until next time, friends, which won't be long from now, we will see you.
Hashtag butt stuff.